Well, thank you for joining us today for the PPM Insights webcast. These webcasts are hosted by CA Services on the second Thursday of every month at 11 Eastern. And we feature PPM experts with fresh perspectives and expert takes on project and portfolio management hot topics. Today we have a panel discussion, which we're excited about, and we'll also answer your questions during the live Q&A. As always, you can continue this discussion in the comments section of the popular PPM Insights blog at CA Communities. So joining us for this month's panel discussion, we have 4 PPM experts who have probably seen it, done it, advised it, or advised against it all. So here's who will be fielding questions on the hot topics that concern many of our PPM practitioners, and also taking some of your questions as soon as we're done with our roundtable. We're joined by Mike Richman. He's a 20-year veteran with CAPPM. He's assisted organizations across all major industries, including the public sector. And his emphasis is in functional architecture, excels at revealing PPM business process gaps and how to remediate them. Some of you may have actually worked with him or met him in the field, and building consensus with stakeholders and practitioners. We also have Richard Dunmow, who's joining us from the UK today. He is a management consultant with 20 years between ABT, NICU, and CA. His current assignments include banking, insurance, automotive, telecom, other major industries, and he is both functional and technical when it comes to solving business problems. Bob Peacock has also got an extensive amount of experience with PPM. He's been working with the federal government for the past 3 years, but also has experience in banking and insurance and other major industries. His focus areas are definitely functional as opposed to technical, but otherwise, much like Richard, he's just trying to solve your business problems. And then we also have James Kruger. He has over 25 years of experience implementing solutions across 4 continents. He's been responsible for successfully implementing CAPPM for a lot of large international and national corporations across different industries. So for those of you who have met Spike before, no one knows how he got the nickname Spike. So if you've met Spike along the way, please let us know in the Q&A how he happened to get that nickname. So thank you to our panelists for joining us. Let's go ahead and get started. Our first question, Richard, this really kind of falls into, I think, your area of expertise. Where do you really see PPM fitting in as a lot of our practitioners go forward with more demands being made when resources often stay unchanged?
Thank you, Lisa. That's a good one. And I would argue the fact that this has been the case for many, many, many years. I always remember having to deliver more and more with less and less people, and I would say PPM, as always, has been one of the key pieces of technology to allow people to drive more benefit from the people that they have within an organization, to see what people are doing and what they're not doing, who's over-allocated and such like. So I would say it becomes more and more important for people to, choice of better words, collaborate more, tighter teams, that kind of stuff around, and being agile and flexible, because a lot of what we see in the organizations are, dare I say, time lost through to complicated processes, people being unable to do what they need to do because of process and complicated things around that, and just dealing with those kind of things. I would also say, as we get more and more down the route of having to do more with less, just being able to have people showing as what they're doing, where they're delivering value to the organization, to help drive the fact that organizations need people as much as they're trying to drive the maximum profit out of an organization. Sorry, I had a lovely long speech of what I was going to say, but the key aspect to all of this is agility. Using some of the agile methods. Not everything works for agile. Agile methods and being able to deliver flexible workforce to drive the maximum benefit from an organization.
That's good perspective. Thank you. And I think you touched on one of these things, that a lot of times that accelerated pace and agile are used in the same sentence. So I think a lot of organizations get challenged when they're using a waterfall or a hybrid approach on taking on those challenges. So we're going to be coming back to you on a couple of those items too. So thank you. Mike, another probably hot topic that we've heard a lot about, where have you seen companies do top-down planning well? And how do they really align to what's being done with business goals and objectives? Are there some organizations that are better suited to this? What are some of the pluses and minuses of doing it? We're starting to hear more and more about this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, and thanks for the opportunity to contribute today. What's fascinating to think about is the simple notion that every company is doing top-down planning in some way or another today. They have to. But whether or not they're actually concentrating on it and it's a whole different topic. A big thing is connecting a high-level strategy with the low-level operational approach. And what we find is so many companies that are in a disruption environment, they're usually reacting and taking more of a bottoms-up, what's next approach, rather than being able to have the time and ability to do a top-down road mapping approach, which is more of a strategic. So one of the challenges has been is that, well, let me say it this way. It's not a challenge to understand what your business objectives and business goals are. And it's certainly not a challenge to understand what you want to be working on. But the challenge then becomes, how do you put all of that together in a way that's meaningful, and how can you start to do what-ifing? So what I've been helping customers to understand is if they're too much in the firefighting mode, then they're going to get lost and bowled over. So if they can take the time to stop and do a high-level roadmap, strategic roadmap, and enable their organization to do it in an easy way and a fast way, where they can coordinate their strategy with their business goals and their business objectives, and have some understanding of what the details are underneath that high-level strategy, they're going to be a lot better off.
Thank you. And I think, what you ended on there with the business goals and the details underneath that kind of leads into what I wanted to ask Bob about, which is, a lot of that also depends on the adoption level, I think, of the tools being used and shared across the organization. So everybody is getting similar views and similar content and similar data. So, Bob, you've been around, and probably one of the more challenging assignments that you've ever had is the last 3 years where you've been working with a federal agency. Based on your experience, what are some of the more effective adoption strategies that you've seen that help people kind of move towards that model and overcome some of those challenges that Mike just mentioned, as far as, and especially when it comes to rolling out new or upgraded solutions?
Thanks, Lisa. Yes, good morning. I think there's a number of factors, and really the ones that I'm thinking about are sponsorship, communications, and training. With regard to sponsorship, executive level, setting the expectations for the enterprise, and making it important. That is that it should not be hollow sponsorship. There needs to be accountability in this particular area. Moving on to communications plans, again, it follows from the messaging, the who, what, why, when, how sort of aspect of, once again, emphasizing the importance to the organization with regard to whatever is changing. And then, as I say, training. I mean, at the end of the day, guys, if we don't have adoption, we failed. And we need to think about how we measure that adoption. So, looking for metrics in that particular area as well is important. And I think, again, certainly with regard to PPM, it's all about organizational change management, or OCM. PPM sits at the very heart of a lot of organizations and not necessarily IT. At the government agency I'm working with at the moment, we're looking to, or in fact, we have already deployed Cfp Pm as a case management system. It's not necessarily project management, but case management. And, those are the sorts of things. Along the way, I'd like to give a huge plug to CA Services Education. They can help with the training. And, there's again, I think the training is probably, well, sponsorship, communication, training plans, but the way I've seen it being used very effectively recently is to create videos, place those in the learning management systems for these organizations. It's very easy for us then to see who is taking up the opportunity to learn about the system. And of course, another big plug for Kappa. I believe we have a new version of Kappa out for 15.5, for 15.5, and again, that's of utmost importance really there. So it's just a few thoughts there, Lisa.
That's great. And when you mentioned the training, I think what a lot of listeners might not be aware of is that we also do have quite a few free videos out there as well if there are some things or topics that they want to explore. You mentioned one of the things about being able to see what people are accessing as far as the training goes. Is there anything else that you see organizations measuring to help them measure adoption?
Yes, indeed. You've just reminded me. There's the Cfp Pm Adoption Dashboard, which has been around for a year or more now. And I think if customers are interested in that in any aspect, they could send you an email, couldn't they? Remind me what your email is, Lisa.
Yep. It's just servicesmarketing@ca.com. And I'm glad you brought that up because I actually forgot about the dashboards. There's some great data that gets captured in there for seeing who's using what, right?
Absolutely. The situation is, to steal a quote from a colleague, good metrics are a measurement of movement towards business goals. So, once again, depending on the goals of the organization in the context of Cfp Pm, they can be varied with, once again, work management, project financial management, as Mike mentioned, top-down planning. This situation is really important to see if we are gaining traction and moving towards those goals. And the dashboards, as you know, Lisa, provide a great deal of insight into what's going on within the system.
Great, thank you. So by kind of carrying on with that theme, there was a recent analyst report that came out, I think back in May, that noted that there are some phases where users are starting to place increased emphasis when it comes to project and portfolio management, and especially based on your experience and how many different organizations you've seen addressing challenges in different ways. What's your experience in there were 4 areas that came up in this analyst report as far as the increased emphasis. It was strategic engagement, investments and expected outcomes, aligning resulting programs and projects with the original strategic goals and realizing benefits, so confirming that the value was delivered and that it could be quantified. How have you seen people handling those, and have some been more of a struggle than others?
Thanks, Lisa. I think if you look at the third one, aligning programs, projects with goals, I think that's the one that most clients actually implement. I think they're at the beginning of each of their financial years, when they find a project, they're good at either assigning a project to a strategic goal, either by assigning it on the project properties or using portfolios to group their strategic goals together. I'm not sure how well they monitor that throughout the year. So at the beginning of the year, they set that up, but are they monitoring that throughout the year to make sure that, you know, for example, 30% of our projects are focused on this goal? Is 30% of the cost, 30% of the hours throughout the year is focused on that. So I think companies that do that successfully monitor that monthly, and they keep on track in terms of their strategic goals and make sure people are working on the right projects. So I think a lot of our users do that. They just have to focus on doing it throughout the year and sticking with that. The most difficult one, I think, is, and I think everyone would agree, is the quantifying benefits. So everyone kind of hates this. It does seem like a lot of work to do, but I think it does provide a lot of value. You know, it's easy to do the ones for, you know, if they're cost savings or revenue. You can put a dollar figure on that. Some of the other ones which are not related to that are harder, but you can track things like hits to a website where you're getting more traffic, amount of time customers spend on hold if you're doing a phone system, decreasing the number of defects found in the system or increasing performance, and even, you know, decreasing the number of help desk calls. So there are ways you can track and measure the benefit of a project. And if you can't do it at a project level, you may want to start at the program or portfolio level. Maybe it's easier to start tracking benefits for a group of projects together. And I remember back when I was starting, most organizations have a 5-year window for benefits realization. Nowadays, that has decreased, so most companies are looking for benefits realization within the next year or two. So it's actually easier now to track the benefits than it was back early on. And I know one of the projects I'm working on now, one of the benefits we have is to increase the number of audits this company can perform each year. And the project team, knowing that at the start of the project, that became our focus during our design. We focused on, okay, remember, we have to increase the number of audits we can do a year, so that drove our design scenarios and our decisions on that. And I think it gets the team excited, and we're going to be tracking that throughout the year and monitoring bottlenecks. And if we discover a bottleneck, those are the enhancements we're going to work on to change first. So I think it's great. We can't wait to see at the year's time whether we achieve that benefits. And I think you know, it's capable for other organizations to start that, but you have to start now, and you'll get better at it as you go along. But I recommend that they do start tracking benefits.
And that's a big one. That's another one, I think, that you know, that whole compressed time frame and more accountability is something that comes up over and over and over again. So you know, I'm curious because the benefits issue, the benefits tracking comes up a lot, and I'm just curious if any of the other panelists have views on that or experience.
Lisa, this is Bob. I'd like to jump right in on that one. And this isn't really very specific. It is more a thought for us to take with us, I think. A colleague of ours, I was talking with a colleague of ours, and he mentioned that you know, one of the interesting conversations he has with customers was along the lines of, you know, how many systems do you have in-house for tracking costs? And the answer, of course, is very many. And then the next question is, how many systems do you have for tracking benefits? And quite often there's a big silence at that point. But yeah, you know, I hope I've made the point. You know, without accurate costs and benefits, how can we begin to judge our performance?
And it's Richard here, and I'd just like to chip in on this one. I've spent a lot of time working with management consultant firms, and they spend months trying to talk to organizations about how they should track benefits. It is one of the hardest things to do within an organization. You're right, if we don't track them properly, or at least have a way of putting them in a system that they can be looked at and quantified, you're never going to be able to justify what you're doing.
Great point, guys. Great point. So, you know, one of the things that we talked about when we started talking about this panel discussion was you guys are pretty opinionated, frankly, and so I'm curious if there are one or two things that you would encourage the listeners on the webcast to do in the next day, week, or month, short time frame, that can have a positive impact on what they're doing in their organizations through PPM. What would your advice be, either what to do or what not to do ever? So, Bob, we're gonna let you take this one first.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, no, fortunately, you gave us a little bit of a time to think about that. And my answer, I've got two should-dos. I think celebrating the release of 15.5 this week, I think we should be taking a very hard look at 15.5, starting with the release notes, and endeavoring to understand and execute around the value delivered in the new UI. I've had the opportunity to take a look at it. Very exciting. Lots more work to do, but it's absolutely in the right, going in the right direction as far as I'm concerned. The old UI, everybody complains about it, so there's something exciting going on there. And my second point is, building on the first really, is get out there and get your roadmaps going. Your roadmap to delivering value. How are you going to do that? And of course, I'm going to put a big plug in for using agile techniques and an agile approach towards doing that. And when you've figured it all out, prioritize your stories by business value.
Great, thank you. So, Spike, you want to chime in here? What would you advise to do or never do for the people on the call today?
Sure. One thing I typically recommend, especially for those users who have been using PPM for a year or more, is start mining that data that you already have and start analyzing it and seeing what trends show up. So, for example, at the beginning of the year, you usually set a target in terms of how much time you're going to spend on lights on versus project work. Well, how's the trend in that over the last couple of years? Are you spending more time or less time on it? If you have that data in the system, you can start pulling it out very easily. Are projects taking more or less time? Are you improving your efficiency with projects? Are there systems out there which are getting a lot of your effort, which don't deserve those efforts? They're not critical to the organization. Which lines of business are you doing most of the work for? Should you be doing those? Should you be working that much for those lines of business? Do you need to redirect your need for that? So we have one company that's been using Cfp Pm for like over 9 years. And one of the things they do when they create a new project is they look at their similar projects. So they have a view out there where they can see similar projects and see how much time each typical projects have taken, how much time the BA role versus the tester role are used on that. And they use that to improve their estimating. And I would recommend users spend more time analyzing the data they already have in the system.
Great, good advice, and gets back to a lot of, again, what you guys have mentioned earlier. So, Mike, last but certainly not least, what would you advise doing next or never ever doing? What's your perspective?
I would say be a hero. And by that, what if you were able to bring the organization a really easy and quick and, frankly, fun way of including road mapping in such a way that you can tie your roadmap to your business objectives and business goals, and as you need, you can pull actual execution data up into the roadmap to round it out to be more realistic. And that's what our road mapping capability offers, starting in 15.4. Now in 15.5, there's even a richer capability set within road mapping. So you can very quickly, within 3 to 4 weeks, be able to bring this to a presentation to your business customers, along with your management in the IT shop, and show them how they can start getting strategic capabilities using road mapping in a fast and easy and fun way.
That's a great opportunity for being a hero, to be able to take that kind of view that quickly. I think that's one of the things that's kind of blown me away about the last 2 versions is how quickly things can come together that way, especially with road mapping. So didn't mean to skip over you there, Richard, but your advice, right? I have not had enough coffee yet.
Thank you. No, I would say to the people out there, it's all of the above, but also look at how you're using the system. A lot of people, especially clients out there that have been using the tool for a very long time, they're struggling with the tool from an overcomplication. Going back to what is the tool there for? What is it trying to drive in your organization, especially around adoption of the new user interface, the friendlier way of working, and all of that great stuff that we have in the tool. I spend a lot of time talking to clients who have had the tool for many years who have said, we don't know what we're doing with this. We need help. And it's just literally going back to the basics and saying, look, have we got the people doing the planning properly? Are people filling in their timesheets correctly? Do we know what people are doing? And just getting back to those basics and really, as the other guys have said, mining that wealth of information that's in the tool.
Great, thank you. So we do have one question before we move into, I've got one more question for you guys that I hope I don't put you on the spot too much. But one of the questions is where listeners can get more information about the adoption dashboard that you mentioned, Bob. So one of the places that you can get information about it is, again, you can email me at servicesmarketing@ca.com. You can also reach out to your CA Services representative or your sales team, whoever's helping you out that way. But short term, you can always just email me at servicesmarketing@ca.com. So all right, guys. So I'm going to put you on the spot one more time here. A couple of you have mentioned that 15.5 came out this week. So it did hit the sidewalk on Monday, so we're excited about it. So my question to you guys is, what are you most excited about in 15.5? And so if people are looking for demos or looking to upgrade, what do you think is the coolest thing that we've got going in 15.5? So Spike, take it away. What's your top thing?
Sure. I still like the task boards. And you know, basically when we started out, the Gantt chart was really the tool for the project manager to manage the project. Now we have the concept of task boards where you can put in your own stages, your own gates for tasks, and look at it another way visually, and open it up for team members so team members can easily see what they need to do, where they are with each task. And I think it's a great advantage to project managers to use that task board as well as the Gantt chart.
Great. Bob, what's your favorite thing?
Well, I'm still investigating it, but it looks like channels, the ability to basically open a window within the new UI and access other systems. You know, we may be able to get past some level of integration, but the ability to do reporting, access windows, and my understanding is that this is all parameterized, so very much looking forward to using the new capabilities as to construct dashboards, but not only that, but allow access to disparate applications directly from the new UI. So that's what I'm looking forward to, Lisa.
Great. It's kind of like getting a new toy for Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah, really.
All right, Mike, your favorite thing in 15.5? Unless we lost Mike, in which case I'm skipping right ahead to Richard.
I'm back, so go ahead.
Do you want to go, Mike?
Yeah, right. So no, I'm all about the roadmap capability, and the part of being a hero is to be able to show your users of roadmap that they can actually have 3 simultaneous views, and you just simply click from one to the next to the next. So the roadmap view is it's what you would expect. It's got time bars across from left to right, and you can drag your roadmap items and display them visually, or you could click over into a board, looks just like a Kanban board, and you can now organize that board any way you want. You can do it by business objective or business goal or business sponsor or product, or you can click into the next tab and you now have a spreadsheet. Because most of the folks who are doing the analysis, they want a spreadsheet, and most of the executives, they want a picture, and everyone could benefit by the Kanban board. So there's something in it for everyone, and again, you walk away looking like a hero.
That's fantastic. Great. And Richard?
Well, there's a number of things within the new 15.5. I would say roadmaps definitely, but also the ability to put in the time-based financials in roadmaps. That's a big thing. I'm looking forward to trying out the Teams functionality, especially around the integration with Agile Central, to see how we can make that work much better together. And some of the stuff that's come out in beta, these new investment types, that looks like it could be a new, very interesting piece of technology when it gets a little bit more meat to it in the later versions. But I'm looking forward to all of that.
That's great. Yep, lots of great things to check out with 15.5, and I think there's already some information out there. If you go to ca.com/ppm, you can get a closer view at some of the great things that are going on. So I want to thank all of you guys for joining us today. Oh, and Bob just reminded me, docops.ca.com is another source for more information. So I do want to thank our panelists for joining us today. If you do have any questions, we've got a couple of minutes left. You can enter them in the Q&A section of the WebEx interface. So if you do have a couple of questions that you would like to ask, go ahead and enter them now. This webcast recording will also be made available on communities.ca.com. So it looks like we don't have any questions coming in, so I want to thank you guys again for spending part of your day with us. Just as a reminder, these webcasts do happen on the second Thursday of every month at 11 o'clock Eastern. Certainly we appreciate Communities for hosting us. You can visit them at communities.ca.com and visit the Cfp Pm community to learn from your fellow practitioners, and a lot of the hot topics and latest things coming out also get posted there as well. So thank you again. You're welcome to continue the conversation at the PPM Insights blog, which is also at communities.ca.com. And thank you again. Have a great rest of the week, everybody.